Hi, today I'm going to talk about Genie Wiley. Early life 1957 to 1970. Genie's life prior to her discovery was one of utter deprivation. She spent most of her days tied naked to a potty chair, only able to move her hands and feet. When she made noise, her father would beat her. The rare times her father did interact with her, it was to bark or growl. Genie Wiley's brother, who was 5 years older than Genie, also suffered abuse under their father. Discovery and study 1970 to 1975. Genie's story emerged on November 4, 1970, in Los Angeles, California, when a social worker discovered the 13-year-old girl after her mother sought services for her own health. The social worker found that Genie had been confined to a small room, often tied to a potty chair, and an investigation quickly revealed that she had spent most of her life in this state of severe neglect. Susan Curtis, Ph.D., a linguist and researcher who worked with Genie, explained that the name Genie was used in case files to protect her identity and privacy. Curtis noted that the name was symbolic, comparing Genie to a mythical genie emerging from a bottle, as Genie emerged into human society past childhood without having a typical human childhood. Both of Genie's parents were charged with abuse. However, her father died by suicide the day before his court appearance, leaving a note that read, "The world will never understand."
Why did you keep your daughter in a room?
Mr. Wiley has no comment.
No comment.
We haven't had time to discuss the charges. We haven't even seen them.
Genie's story quickly drew public and scientific attention, becoming a significant case because, as psycholinguist and author Harlan Lane, Ph.D., noted, our morality doesn't allow us to conduct deprivation experiments with human beings. These unfortunate people are all we have to go on. With significant interest in Genie's case, a team of psychologists and language experts began her rehabilitation. The National Institute of Mental Health NIMH funded scientific research on Genie's condition. Psychologist David Reigler, Ph.D., was part of the Genie team and described the process, emphasizing how those who interacted with her were deeply moved by her. Reigler noted that Genie had a unique way of connecting with people without speaking, often through the look in her eyes, which inspired a desire to help her. Genie's rehabilitation team included graduate student Susan Curtis and psychologist James Kent. When Genie first arrived at UCLA, she weighed only 59 pounds and moved with a peculiar bunny walk. She often spat, was unable to straighten her arms and legs, was silent, incontinent, and unable to chew. Initially, she seemed to recognize only her name and the word sorry. Upon assessing her emotional and cognitive abilities, Kent described Genie as the most profoundly damaged child I've ever seen. Genie's life is a wasteland. Her silence and inability to use language made it challenging to evaluate her mental abilities, but she scored at about the level of a 1-year-old on various tests. Genie Wiley's rehabilitation and the Forbidden Experiment. Genie Wiley's rehabilitation began with remarkable progress in specific areas. She quickly learned to use the toilet and dress herself, and over the next few months she continued to make developmental strides, although she struggled significantly with language. Genie enjoyed day trips outside the hospital and explored her new environment with an intensity that amazed both her caregivers and strangers. According to linguist Susan Curtis, Genie had a strong ability to communicate non-verbally, often receiving gifts from total strangers who seemed to sense her powerful need to explore the world around her. Psychiatrist Jay Shirley, M.D., assessed Genie shortly after her discovery and noted the rarity of her situation. Her case quickly became the center of a conflict among the researchers involved. Disagreements over the direction of her research and treatment soon erupted. Genie occasionally spent the night at the home of Jean Butler, one of her teachers. Following an outbreak of measles, Genie was quarantined at Butler's home. Butler soon became very protective and began limiting access to Genie. Other team members suspected that Butler aimed to gain fame from the case, as she reportedly referred to herself as the next Sullivan, the famous teacher of Helen Keller. This led to significant interference with the researchers' roles, and they fought for access to Genie, who was viewed as an asset and an opportunity for recognition. Eventually, Genie was removed from Butler's care and went to live with psychologist David Reigler, where she remained for the next years, despite some difficulties. Genie appeared to thrive in the Reigler household. She loved to draw, often finding it easier to communicate through drawing than through other methods. After Genie's discovery, a group of researchers embarked on the process of her rehabilitation. However, this effort coincided with research to study her ability to acquire and use language. The dual interests of rehabilitation and research led to conflicts in her treatment and among the researchers and therapists working on her case. State custody 1975 present. In 1974, the National Institute of Mental Health (NIMH) withdrew funding for Genie Wiley's case due to a lack of substantial scientific findings. Linguist Susan Curtis had discovered that while Genie could use individual words, she could not form coherent sentences or grammar, supporting the hypothesis of a critical period in language development. David Reigler's research was found to be disorganized and largely anecdotal. Without the necessary funds to continue both research and care, Genie was removed from the Reigler's custody. In 1975, Genie was placed back with her birth mother. However, her mother found it challenging to care for Genie, leading to Genie's transfer through a series of foster homes. Unfortunately, she often faced further abuse and neglect in these environments. Genie's condition continued to deteriorate. After an extended period in foster care, she returned to Children's Hospital. The significant progress she had made during her initial stay had been severely undermined by the negative experiences in foster care. Genie reverted to silence and was fearful of opening her mouth. Her birth mother eventually filed a lawsuit against Children's Hospital of Los Angeles and the research team, accusing them of excessive testing. The lawsuit was settled, but it raised important ethical questions about whether the research had interfered with Genie's therapeutic treatment. Psychiatrist Jay Shirley visited Genie on her 27th and 29th birthdays, describing her as largely silent, depressed, and chronically institutionalized. Little is known about her current condition, though in 2000, an anonymous individual hired a private investigator who reported that Genie appeared happy. This, however, contrasts with other reports suggesting ongoing struggles. Genie Wiley today. Genie Wiley's current whereabouts remain unknown. If she is still living, it is presumed that she is a ward of the state of California, residing in an adult care home. As of 2024, Genie would be 66 or 67 years old.
The end.